Imagine standing in the busiest marketplace in ancient Athens, surrounded by the wisest men of your time, philosophers, politicians, teachers who claim to hold the secrets of the universe in their minds. And then, one man walks up to them, barefoot, dressed in nothing but a simple tunic, and asks them a single question. Just one question. And with that question, he destroys everything they thought they knew. He doesn't argue. He doesn't lecture. He doesn't even claim to know the answer himself. He just asks. And in that asking, he reveals a truth so profound that it would echo through 25 centuries. The wisest person in the room is the one who admits they know nothing at all. His name was Socrates, and his method changed the world forever. This is not just a story about ancient philosophy. This is about you. About me. About every single moment we've walked through life believing we had it all figured out, only to realize we were standing on ground that was never solid to begin with. See, we live in a world obsessed with answers. We collect them like trophies. We wear them like armor. We use them to prove we're smart, that we're right, that we belong. But what if the entire foundation of wisdom isn't about having answers at all? What if true intelligence, real growth, genuine transformation begins the moment we're brave enough to admit we might be wrong? Socrates understood this. He didn't write books. He didn't build schools. He didn't create empires. He walked the streets of Athens and he talked to people. Merchants, soldiers, politicians, young students eager to learn. And he asked them questions. Simple questions. Questions that seemed innocent at first, almost childlike. But beneath those questions was something dangerous, something radical, a method that stripped away pretense, shattered illusions, and forced people to confront the uncomfortable reality that maybe, just maybe, they didn't know what they thought they knew. And here's why this matters to you, right now, in this moment, because we all do it. We all cling to our beliefs, our opinions, our certainties like life rafts in a storm. We build entire identities around being right. And in doing so, we close ourselves off from the very thing that could set us free, the willingness to question everything, especially ourselves. Let me take you back to that marketplace. Picture it. Dust rising from sandaled feet, the smell of olives and fresh bread, voices haggling over prices, debating, arguing. And there's Socrates, standing in front of a man who everyone respects, a teacher, someone who's made a career out of knowing things. Socrates approaches him with genuine curiosity and asks, "What is justice?" The man answers confidently, smoothly, as if he's given this answer 1,000 times before. But Socrates doesn't nod and walk away. He listens. And then he asks another question. "But if that's justice, then what about this situation?" And another question. "And if that's true, how does it apply here?" With each question, the cracks begin to show. The confident answers start to stumble. Contradictions emerge. And suddenly, this man who walked into the conversation certain of his wisdom is standing there, speechless, realizing that everything he thought he knew was built on assumptions he never examined. Socrates hasn't told him he's wrong. He hasn't mocked him. He's simply guided him, through questions, to discover his own ignorance. This was the Socratic method. Not a weapon. Not a debate tactic. But a mirror. A way of holding up reality and asking, "Are you sure? Have you really thought about this?" And here's the beautiful, terrifying thing about it. It worked on everyone. The arrogant, the humble, the educated, the simple. Because ignorance doesn't discriminate. We all have blind spots. We all have beliefs we've never truly questioned. We all walk through life with maps in our heads that we've never tested against the terrain of truth. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about the beliefs you hold right now, about yourself, about other people, about how the world works. How many of those beliefs have you actually examined? How many did you inherit from your parents, your culture, your experiences, without ever asking, "Is this actually true?" We go through life on autopilot, operating on assumptions, reacting from patterns, defending positions we didn't even consciously choose. And then we wonder why we feel stuck. Why we keep hitting the same walls. Why growth feels so hard. Socrates knew something we've forgotten. He knew that ignorance isn't the absence of information, it's the illusion of knowledge. It's thinking you understand when you don't. It's being so certain that you stop asking questions. And in that certainty you become trapped. You stop growing. You stop learning. You stop evolving into who you could be. But there was something else Socrates understood, something even more powerful. He knew that admitting, "I know nothing," wasn't weakness, it was liberation. When you let go of the need to be right, when you release the burden of pretending to have all the answers, something miraculous happens. You become open, curious, free. You can actually listen to other people instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. You can change your mind without feeling like you're losing something. You can ask for help without shame. You can explore, experiment, fail, and learn without the crushing weight of ego demanding you maintain the facade of certainty. Let's go deeper. Because this isn't just about intellectual humility. This is about how we move through the world. How we love. How we lead. How we make decisions. How we treat ourselves when we fail. Imagine two people. One walks through life believing they have most of it figured out. They've got their opinions locked in. They know what's right and wrong, what works and what doesn't. When someone challenges them, they defend. When evidence contradicts their beliefs, they rationalize. When they make mistakes, they blame circumstances, other people, bad luck. They're trapped in a prison of their own certainty, but they don't even know it. Growth, for them, is nearly impossible, because growth requires admitting you were wrong, and they can't afford to be wrong. Now imagine the other person. They walk through life with questions. Not because they're weak or indecisive, but because they're genuinely curious. They hold their beliefs lightly, like water in their hands, ready to let them flow and reshape when new information arrives. When someone challenges them, they listen, really listen, asking themselves, "What if they're right? What if I'm missing something?" When they make mistakes, they don't collapse into shame, they investigate. "What can I learn here? What did I miss?" This person is free. They're growing. They're becoming wiser not because they're accumulating more answers, but because they're asking better questions. This is what Socrates was trying to teach us. The Socratic method wasn't just about winning arguments or exposing frauds. It was about cultivating a way of being in the world, a posture of humble inquiry. It was about training your mind to question itself, to examine its own assumptions, to hold space for uncertainty without fear. And here's where it gets really profound. Socrates believed that wisdom wasn't something you acquired from outside. It wasn't information you downloaded. It was something already within you, buried beneath layers of false beliefs and unexamined assumptions. The questions weren't meant to fill you with knowledge. They were meant to strip away the illusions so that truth could emerge from within. This is why he called himself a midwife of ideas. He didn't give people answers. He helped them give birth to their own understanding. Think about that. What if you already know, deep down, what you need to know? What if the confusion, the doubt, the feeling of being lost isn't because you lack answers, but because you're drowning in too many unquestioned beliefs? What if clarity comes not from finding more information, but from questioning what you think you already know? Now here's the moment that changes everything. The Oracle at Delphi once proclaimed that Socrates was the wisest man in Athens. When Socrates heard this, he was confused. How could he be the wisest when he didn't claim to know anything? So he set out on a mission. He went to the people everyone considered wise, the politicians, the poets, the craftsmen, and he questioned them. And what he discovered shocked him. These people, despite their confidence and their reputations, didn't really know what they claimed to know. They were skilled in their crafts, yes, but they believed their expertise in one area made them wise in all areas. They confused knowledge with wisdom. They confused certainty with truth. And then Socrates understood. The oracle was right. He was the wisest, not because he knew more, but because he was the only one who understood the depth of his own ignorance. While everyone else walked around blind but believing they could see, Socrates walked around knowing he was blind, and that awareness changed everything. It made him teachable. It made him curious. It made him wise. This is the turning point. The moment you realize that your greatest obstacle to growth isn't what you don't know, it's what you think you know that isn't true. It's the false confidence, the unearned certainty, the refusal to question yourself because you're afraid of what you might find. But what if that fear is misplaced? What if on the other side of that admission, "I don't know," isn't weakness but power? What if saying, "I was wrong," isn't defeat but the first step toward truth? Socrates was executed for his questions. The Athenian authorities convicted him of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. But really, they killed him because he made them uncomfortable. He exposed their ignorance. He threatened their power. He showed them that their carefully constructed identities were built on sand. And rather than face that truth, they silenced him. But they couldn't silence the method. They couldn't kill the questions. Because once you start asking real questions, once you commit to examining your life, you can't go back to comfortable ignorance. The questions become part of you. So here's what I want you to understand. Here's what Socrates, across the span of centuries, is asking you right now. What are you certain about? What beliefs are you defending without question? What stories are you telling yourself about who you are, what's possible, what you deserve, that you've never actually examined? Because the unexamined life, Socrates said, is not worth living. Not because life without philosophy is meaningless, but because a life without questions is a life asleep. It's a life of reaction instead of intention. It's a life where you're controlled by unconscious patterns, inherited beliefs, and unquestioned assumptions. And that's not living, that's existing. But the moment you start asking questions, real questions, honest questions, the kind that make you uncomfortable, you wake up. You start to see. You start to grow. You become the author of your own understanding rather than the passive recipient of everyone else's opinions. You become free. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it requires humility. Yes, it means admitting you've been wrong, maybe for years, maybe about things that felt central to who you are. But what's the alternative? Spending the rest of your life defending a version of yourself that isn't even real? Clinging to beliefs that don't serve you just because letting them go feels like losing? That's not strength. That's prison. Socrates walked through Athens barefoot and poor, owning almost nothing, yet he was freer than the richest, most powerful people around him. Because he wasn't enslaved to his ego. He wasn't imprisoned by the need to be right. He could ask, he could wonder, he could change his mind, he could grow. And in that humble admission, "I know that I know nothing," he found something the rest of the world was searching for, wisdom. So here's my question for you, the one Socrates would ask if he were standing in front of you right now. Are you brave enough to admit you might be wrong? Are you courageous enough to question yourself? Are you humble enough to say, "I don't know," and mean it? Because if you are, if you can embrace that uncertainty, if you can walk through life with curiosity instead of certainty, then you're not just following in Socrates' footsteps. You're doing something even more powerful. You're freeing yourself. You're opening the door to real growth. You're stepping into the kind of wisdom that doesn't come from knowing all the answers. It comes from asking the right questions. And maybe, just maybe, that's the secret we've all been searching for. Not knowledge. Not certainty. Not having it all figured out. But the courage to question everything, including ourselves. The humility to admit when we're wrong. The freedom that comes from letting go of the need to be right. That's wisdom. That's growth. That's what it means to truly live. Socrates knew nothing. And in knowing nothing, he knew everything that mattered.